Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson. So excited to be with you and share the news with you. I've got a special guest today. I've got US Congressman Tom Tiffany out of Wisconsin. We're going to be talking about something, folks, you do not want to miss this, and please share this everywhere, especially if you know people in Wisconsin, because what's going on right now is so vital to control of the US Congress, and you can make a difference in this one. So do me a favor, smash that like button, do chat in with where you're from, and share this stream out. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring in Representative Tiffany. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Neil, it's good to join Lumberjack Logic. You know, over where I'm at, we refer to them as Jack Pine Savages. And so it's really good to join you.
Yeah, you actually, and I think your district, if I'm not mistaken, encompasses that where the lumberjack show originated. No, that was out of Hayward, but there's another lumberjack show up in St. Germain too.
There's one in Woodruff and also in Hayward. And so, yeah,
yes.
I have all of that. I got a big district. I cover 40% of Wisconsin, one of 8 districts, but I cover 40% of it. So, you know, largely rural, forested, and a lot of agriculture, manufacturing, stuff like that. Lots of small towns. It is a great district.
Oh, it's beautiful. I actually wrote the book Resorts of Wisconsin, and so I've spent a fair amount of time up there in your area around Arbor Vitae, Woodruff, Minocqua, Mercer, all those areas. It's absolutely one of the most beautiful areas. So, folks, if you've never visited Northeast Wisconsin and Northwest Wisconsin, that whole area just pocketed with lakes, very similar to Minnesota in that, well worth checking out. But we have an important issue going on out in Wisconsin. I'm going to just pull something in really quick just to let people know, I guess, what's going on. But this crucial election has national impacts and will require national support, said Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. While conservatives may have the 2024 presidential election in their rearview mirror, there's another upcoming race pivotal to the future of U.S. national politics that requires their immediate attention. On April 1st, folks, it's coming right up, Wisconsin voters will head to the polls to determine which political party will control the state Supreme Court for the next several years. While technically nonpartisan, the High Court currently hosts a 4-3 leftist majority. And I'm talking real leftist majority, folks, okay, which was made possible after Democrat-backed Janet, how do you say her last name, Tom?
Protasewicz
defeated Republican-backed Danielle Kelly in 2023. Now, why is this so important? Well, it's going to determine, this is the Democrats' plan to use Wisconsin Supreme Court to rig the election, the 2026 midterm elections, folks. And I mean, they're out in the open about it. They're shamelessly promoting this, okay? Democrats promise that winning a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat will guarantee a House win in 2026. The Federalist says it's shameless and corrupt. Conservatives need to recognize it for what it is and stop it before it's too late. And I guess with that little introduction, I want to bring the discussion back to you, Tom. And I know this happened that was 2023 when there was an election, and we were all excited because drop boxes had been eliminated out of the state of Wisconsin. And because of the 2023 election, which was the most expensive race in 2023 nationally, I think it's the most expensive state Supreme Court race in the history of the nation. And I think I saw the numbers on it, and I want to say Republicans, not even 30% of them showed up to vote. Dane County turned out record numbers. The Democrats got behind this in a massive way. So I just remove the voter fraud from the equation and say, like, okay, conservatives just didn't show up. Okay, I understand. We've gone ad nauseum over this, folks, and some of the problems with our elections in this country. But I am talking literally, conservatives just didn't show up. You saw that, I'm sure, out there in Wisconsin. You want to talk a little bit about that? And
that's right, Neil. 2 years ago, with that Supreme Court race, that was really a turning point in Wisconsin. And remember, so it's a 7-seat Supreme Court, and there are 4 progressives. And understand, these are not 4 liberals. These are 4 progressives that now control the court, and they want to take Wisconsin off the cliff, much like you saw in Minnesota and we've seen in Illinois from our neighbors. Yeah, these are not just liberals. These are crazy Tim Walz type progressives that are running for these seats. And so it is an absolutely critical election. And part of the reason for that is the next 2 or 3 elections. So our seats are held for 10 years. There's an election every 10 years for each of the Supreme Court seats in Wisconsin. There's not another liberal or progressive that will be up for like 3 or 4 years. They are going to take a wrecking ball to Wisconsin. They're going to get rid of photo ID, which I was in the legislature when we passed that. You're going to see abortion on demand. You're going to see abortion all the way up to 9 months. This candidate that's running on the progressive side, Susan Crawford, she worked for she represented Planned Parenthood. You know what is going to happen. I was in the legislature the same session that we passed photo ID. We passed protections for the Second Amendment. We're one of the last states to pass concealed carry. You can bet that will be under threat under this court. So they're going to roll back everything that was done to make Wisconsin so much better state a decade ago. And they view themselves as judge, jury, executioner. They view themselves as the governor, the legislature, and the court, that they get to do it all. And you can count on that's what's going to happen. But there's a couple big things. And they let the cat out of the bag. The candidate, Susan Crawford, she let the cat out of the bag in the last month when she said there are 2 seats in the House of Representatives that are at stake. And so what she was saying, in effect, is they're going to pull redistricting back into the court for the federal maps. The state maps have already been redistricted, and the federal maps are settled, but anytime you deal with leftists on the court, nothing's settled, right, Neil?
Yes.
They're gonna pull those federal courts back, and they're going to try to gain 2 seats via redistricting and gerrymander the state of Wisconsin. You're almost guaranteed that that is going to happen. And we have such a good candidate that's running, Brad Schimmel, 2-time attorney general. He sits on the court in Waukesha County. He's a law and order judge. He believes in the Constitution. We have to have him win this race, and we're working night and day to make that happen, but it's going to be close. And as you said, those people in Minnesota that have contacts in Wisconsin, tell them this is a big race. President Trump could lose, or we Republicans could lose the majority by losing those 2 seats. I mean, that's how thin our majority is at this point. If anything else goes wrong with other, if we lose somebody via a resignation, President Trump wants to bring somebody into his cabinet, whatever the case may be. I mean, we are at such a thin majority. We need every seat we can get. We lose those 2 seats, and we may not have the majority in the House anymore. And what does that mean? That means they're going to almost certainly impeach President Trump once again.
Yes.
If you care about the Trump presidency, Wisconsin is vital here in this Supreme Court race because it could decide the majority in the House of Representatives. And the progressive Supreme Court candidate said as much.
Yeah, they've been right out in the open in fundraising, everything, that this is their chance to take the US Congress. So again, we're talking about redistricting a map that's already been drawn. And you had this happen in the state of Wisconsin. You guys basically had a super majority out there. And when they redistricted the state, I think you lost 10 to 15 seats in the state legislature, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the legislative maps had been settled, and the court threatened to bring them back in, and you ended up with a major redistricting that really violated the constitutional underpinnings of how we redistrict here in Wisconsin. The ends justify the means. It's as simple as that. So we got to get everybody motivated in Wisconsin. And so we had a bad result in 2023. It did not go our way. Abortion was at the very top of everyone's list. The Democrats used it as the chief motivating force. That's changed a little bit now here in the last couple of years. I think the issue has been attenuated a little bit, but it is going to be a really close race because we've got an excellent candidate, but there is millions of dollars of national money that are flowing into this race. The give credit where it's due. The chairman of the Democrat Party in Wisconsin, he raises money from all over the country. The Hollywood types, they're pumping money in here. The coastal elites, they're pumping money in here. Heck, 2 years ago, Nancy Pelosi put money into the race.
Yeah.
That they know what's at stake. We have to understand what's at stake also. We in Wisconsin do not want to become like Illinois and Minnesota and what's happened. And the big thing about that is why I think people like in Minnesota should be interested is that when you have a state like Wisconsin that if it's kind of holding its conservative edge, it makes it harder for your politicians in Minnesota to do crazy stuff because businesses can say, hey, we're going to go across the border. People can say, we're going to move. And people are doing that from Minnesota. You guys are seeing that out migration that's happening at this point. It's great to have this island like Wisconsin, and we need to maintain that here. And a big part of doing it is winning the Supreme Court race in April and voting for Brad Schimmel.
Yeah, I mean, during 2023, they were pouring money into that race. That's why it became the most expensive race, the most expensive race for a Supreme Court justice in a state in history, and why it was the most expensive race, period, in 2023. The national stakes to this are huge. And again, the reason the Republicans, my understanding too, is the reason the Republicans in Wisconsin signed that lousy redistricting in the state itself to realign the statewide politics was because they feared that if they did not sign the redistricting map that Governor Evers had in front of him, is that the court would have made an even worse one.
And I think that's an accurate characterization, Neil.
So, I don't know. And we're watching this right now. I want to just bring this in too. On a national scale, we're seeing this. My friend Georgia just posted this, but one federal judge just blocked the sitting president of the United States from holding illegal aliens at a detention facility. Okay. They're literally usurping executive power from being able to even, I guess, do proper, immigration enforcement. And then we also saw on top of this, a federal judge with the Department of Government Efficiency, as they're going in and looking at all these agencies, removing executive power again, removing executive power to fire. So, the courts are trying to act as the executive branch, take over the executive branch and the congressional branch. This is one of the greatest threats right now in the country, is we're not having justices and judges who are just letting the Constitution be what it is. They believe it's this living, breathing document that they need to change.
Isn't it awesome? That's what's happened the first couple of weeks of the Trump presidency. Man, he has put them on notice, and we are finding out how deep the rot is here in Washington, D.C. We are beginning to understand how much deeper and wider the swamp is. It is crazy the stuff that is being unearthed at this point, and give Doge and President Trump a whole lot of credit for getting to the bottom of this. And the American people are going to see what their government has been doing to them for well over a decade. It doesn't matter whether it's fostering illegal immigration or spending taxpayers' money to overthrow governments in foreign countries, undermining our government, funding climate change nonsense that's out there. So much of it turns out it was just fake stuff that was being funded by the taxpayers of the United States of America. So it's a great thing that's happening here. And we need to never forget that. This is a really good thing. But when you threaten people's livelihood like this, that have been making their living off of the backs of the taxpayers of America, they're not going to go easy, right?
No.
And the ends justify the means for these judges, and they're going to try to stand in the way. I believe President Trump is going to prevail, though. I believe he's going to prevail through these things. When you're telling the Treasury Secretary you can't access information that is held by the Treasury Department, that's just, the average American understands that's utter nonsense. And I think ultimately we're going to have the Supreme Court step in here and hopefully bring the courts, the lower courts, in line, because what they're doing is completely out of bounds at this point.
Yeah, we need serious relief from the Supreme Court. I have another question for you because a lot of people I see this bouncing around out on X or even in my comments. People are asking the question. Um, these spending bills were signed by Congress, right? And I remember there was like a big fight, and then Speaker Johnson, worked out the bill that came about. Do you know behind the scenes? I'm just speaking purely from political strategy. Were we at a point where it was just like get President Trump in, and all this is going to be resolved? So let's just get the government functioning here for the next little bit, so people actually have a functioning government. And the reality is, once Doge comes in, once these things happen, is that why Mike Johnson went that route? Do you know?
Yeah, I was not in the speaker's office when those decisions were made, but I think through 2024, I certainly believe this, that we had a real chance to get the trifecta. And so let's make sure we don't do anything that would impede that from happening. And we were fortunate that we were able to get the trifecta, and it's largely because of President Trump and his popularity. I mean, look at, he did better in all 50 states. While he didn't win some of those states, he did better in all 50 states, and in some states significantly better. So it has really given him this mandate here. But the thing that's very evident over the last 4 years, they were ready. They were ready for this moment. And these people that are coming in as secretaries, they are going to be outstanding. I think about Russ Vaught at the Office of Management and Budget. I've worked with Russ. He knows the budget very well. He knows where to find the bodies. He's going to do an outstanding job. I hope and pray that the Senate moves Kash Patel this year or this week, because he's the other guy we need at the FBI. There needs to be a thorough house cleaning at the FBI, because I've talked to FBI agents, and we've seen FBI agents as whistleblowers come before the Judiciary Committee that I sit on, and they're disgusted with how the agency has been run. There are really good rank and file people in the FBI. They want to see it be a crime-fighting organization once again, rather than this agency that has fostered a dual system of justice that we Americans find anathema.
Oh, look at that! You're their congressman right there. So
hey,
giving you a shout out. I think Kash Patel has always been like the red line for me. Of all of Trump's appointees, there's nobody I want in there worse than Kash Patel, because I think the FBI is so far off of its mission. And if you would have asked me 20 years ago, Tom, about the FBI, I would have thought it was the most respected law enforcement agency out there. And now I think it's just complete crap. And so,
well, I'm going to take some credit for those of us on the Judiciary Committee, especially with the leadership of Jim Jordan. If you think back to the last 2 years, he did a terrific job of setting us up where we were having hearing after hearing. Remember, we were in New York City. We were in Yuma, Arizona. We were all over the country having hearings, exposing to the American people what was happening with the justice system in America. And it really, I think, helped highlight to the American people how deeply flawed our justice system is at this point, and that it's a dual system of justice. I think those things really helped. The witnesses we brought forward, people like Michael Schellenberger, who's no Republican, but he came forward and said, our freedom of speech is being stifled. And so I think all of that set the table for what happened in November. And now we are finally getting that accounting to the American people by the Department of Government Efficiency, by President Trump and his cabinet secretaries. It's now happening. And now more than ever, we have to support the president. And that's why, going back to the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, we don't want to lose 2 House seats, as the leftist judicial candidate is saying. She's running to be able to flip 2 Republican seats in Wisconsin. If you want to help protect President Trump and you live in Minnesota or other states in Wisconsin, you need to focus on this April 1st race. It is for all the marbles in Wisconsin. We're making America great again. Let's make sure Wisconsin can be great again by protecting the Supreme Court and voting for Brad Schimmel and working for Brad Schimmel here come April 1st.
So, folks, I just want to ask you in the audience a question. I'm going to ask you to respond to this. But, I mean, are you just like minimally just willing to share this stream out so people understand the importance of it, yes or no. And then, you can go to Schimmel's website. You can, I should have pulled that up beforehand, but it's not going to be hard to find. Just Google Schimmel for, Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and you're going to find, and then you could donate to, I mean, every dollar these left-wing lunatics are going to flow into this. It's going to be, I will guarantee you, I would bet you dollars to donuts, Tom, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, but that 2023 is going to be smaller in terms of candidate budget, than this race right now. I don't see, this thing will far surpass it.
Yeah, there could be more money coming in. I can assure you the Hollywood types are looking at writing big checks, and they're being begged right now. I mean, look at the appeal that the progressive judge made. It was to a bunch of people out on the East Coast to send money, and the appeal was, we're going to flip 2 congressional seats. I mean, that's just crazy that you have a judge who's supposed to be nonpartisan is simply just being blatant about it. So we know what's at stake. We know they will do anything to win this race. We need to do everything within the bounds of the law and fight back, because the people of America in Wisconsin, as we saw Wisconsin go red for President Trump in November, we can do it again in April.
All right. Congressman Tiffany,
Great.
I want to thank you for coming on. I'm sure you've got other things you got to get to. It's a busy week out there, but thanks for joining us, because this is like a critical issue, folks. Don't kid yourself. So make sure you're getting this information out there. Make sure you're supporting that, because it's not just Wisconsin. This is national implications. All right.
Hey, Neil, you guys out there in Minnesota, places, some Scotties, them people over in the Badger State, send a message to them. Tell them they got to vote on April 1st.
We got a lot of people in this chat. A lot of my audience is from Wisconsin, because we covered Wisconsin ad nauseum. We Janelle Branchin, Megan Wolf. I mean, I could go down Robin Voss. I could go down the whole list of names out in Wisconsin, and all the news we covered around 2020 and then 2022, and the issues with drop boxes and the Zuckerbucks and Michael Spitzer Rubenstein and Green Bay and 4 of the 5 keys to the ballroom. I mean, I could go. I mean, I've been deep into Wisconsin, and so have my friends on YouTube. We were constantly hitting this issue, because Wisconsin is like the pivotal. Like you knew in 2015 when Trump was running, and then when he took Wisconsin in 2016, you were like, that's it. I knew on election night, I'm like, call the race. It's over. He got Wisconsin, and you knew that he had won the presidency. If Republicans can keep winning in Wisconsin, we're going to have not only great results for Wisconsin, but great results on a national level. Wisconsin is like, everybody focuses on Pennsylvania, and I'm not saying Pennsylvania, but he could have lost Pennsylvania, and there was many paths still to the White House. You knew if Pennsylvania fell, he won. But man, I am telling you, Wisconsin is no less important than Pennsylvania right now. This is like the swing state. I mean, between Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, you got Arizona, Georgia, Michigan. I mean, these are where the presidential race is decided right now. And it's so crucial. So again, Congressman Tiffany, thanks for coming on the show. Folks, we're going to see you on the next episode of Lumberjack Logic. Remember, keep fighting the good fight. All right. Peace out.